Anxiety is loud, but not in the way people expect. It's not just panic attacks or racing hearts. Sometimes it's a hum, a restless static just beneath the surface. You can't sit still. You overthink. You scroll for hours but never feel rested. It's energy, raw, untamed energy. And most people treat it like a problem to silence or sedate. But what if it's not just a problem? What if it's a message? What if your anxiety is actually your creativity trying to break through? Think about it, that internal buzz, that pressure in your chest, that flood of thought and feeling and sensation. What else feels like that? Art, inspiration, the edge of an idea about to become something. Creativity and anxiety come from the same place in the brain, the imagination. Anxious people are often deeply imaginative. They can picture worst-case scenarios in high definition. But that same mental engine can be used to create worlds, to solve problems, to dream big. The difference is where the energy goes. When your creativity has no outlet, it turns inward. It loops, it builds pressure, and pressure without purpose starts to feel like panic. It's like being filled with potential and having nowhere to put it. So your mind starts filling in the blanks. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? But maybe the real question is, what if I never create what I was meant to create? Because unexpressed creativity doesn't just vanish. It mutates. It becomes tension, frustration, a chronic hum of something unfinished. That's what anxiety often is, a creative impulse trapped in a mind that hasn't been taught how to let it out. We live in a world that celebrates productivity but often ignores creativity. A world that says, be useful but rarely says be expressive. So your creativity waits, tapping its foot, filling up space, getting louder. You don't have to be a painter or a poet for this to apply to you. Creativity isn't about talent. It's about movement. It's about making something from what you feel. That could be a song, a story, a garden, a conversation, a new way of doing the same old task. When you begin to channel that energy outward, even in small ways, the anxiety shifts. It doesn't disappear, but it finds direction. It transforms, from pressure into purpose, from chaos into creation. Anxiety might just be a signal that you have something to express, something that isn't being expressed yet. And when you start to listen, that hum might turn into a spark. An anxious mind is rarely quiet. It loops, it spirals, it replays things you said 3 years ago at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. But beneath that noise, there's something important happening. Your brain is active, hyperactive. Ideas, images, what ifs, could be's, should I's. It's exhausting, but it's also powerful. You might feel broken, but what you really are is overflowing. Anxiety is often misunderstood as fear, but more often it's a flood of unprocessed stimulation, too many inputs, too few outlets. And for creative minds, that flood can be constant. Your brain is scanning the world for meaning. It notices the little things, the way someone paused before speaking, the sudden change in the weather, the gap between what's said and what's really meant. You pick up on patterns, you carry stories in your head, you imagine futures, bright or bleak, in vivid color. It's not that your thoughts are irrational, it's that they won't stop. They circle, they stack, they tangle. And because we live in a world that rarely gives us time to process deeply, you carry that tangle with you everywhere. Now imagine what happens when that same mental power is given form. When those ideas don't just stay in your head, but get built into something. A sketch, a dance, a blueprint, a voice memo at 3 a.m. that turns into a poem you didn't know you had in you. That's where the shift happens. When your mental motion turns into creative momentum, you don't have to quiet your mind. You just need to redirect it. But society doesn't always reward that. We're told to be efficient, productive, focused on the task, not dreamy, not imaginative, not too much. So we try to shrink it down, bottle it up, control the current. But creative minds aren't meant to be still. They're meant to flow. Anxiety builds when that flow is dammed up, when expression is seen as a luxury instead of a lifeline. If you've ever been called sensitive or intense or too in your head, Maybe what they were really seeing was your creative energy with no safe place to land. It doesn't mean you're unstable. It means you have fuel, fire, and it's looking for a place to go. So instead of fighting the tide, what if you gave it a direction? Let your anxious mind wander, but give it a pen, a keyboard, a brush, a rhythm, a project. It's not about making something perfect, it's about making something. Let your restlessness move. Let your imagination build instead of burn. That's when the noise begins to quiet, not because you silenced it, but because you heard it. And finally, let it speak. Some people walk through the world with a quiet kind of ease, maybe you don't. Maybe your mind runs loud, maybe you feel too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too intense. And when anxiety shows up, it can amplify all of that. You start to wonder, is something wrong with me? Why can't I calm down? Why do I care so deeply? Why do I feel everything so loudly? But maybe the problem isn't that you feel too much. Maybe it's that the world hasn't made room for people who feel this much. Creative energy isn't quiet. It stirs. It surges. It wants to move. And when that energy is misunderstood, when it's stifled or shamed, it has nowhere to go but inward. It becomes tightness in the chest. It becomes second guessing. It becomes that feeling like you're about to burst, but you don't know why, because deep down you are built to express, to take in life and then reflect it back through your own lens. But if you're told to shrink, to stay quiet, to stay still, your creativity starts to suffocate. And what rises instead is anxiety. Not because you're broken, but because you're blocked. You're carrying beauty that hasn't been spoken, ideas that haven't been shaped, feelings that haven't been translated into something tangible. And the longer it stays inside, the heavier it gets. This is why some people feel relief after writing a poem, or dancing alone in a room, or painting with no plan, because it moves the energy. It doesn't need to be good, it doesn't need to be shared, it just needs to be released. You don't have to perform it, you just have to let it out. Sometimes that too muchness is actually your gift. It's the part of you that notices the beauty others miss, that holds space for pain, that dreams in color when the world feels gray. And yeah, it's a lot to carry, but what if it was never meant to stay inside you? What if anxiety isn't a flaw to manage, but a signal to create? The tension, the pressure, the sensitivity, it's not weakness, it's potential. So the next time you feel like you're spiraling, or overflowing, or too much for this world, remember, maybe it's not about fixing yourself. Maybe it's about freeing yourself. By doing what your creative energy was always meant to do, move. So now what? You've got this energy, this constant hum in your chest. You know it's more than fear, more than nerves, more than just needing to chill. It's movement, it's momentum, and it's begging for direction. You don't have to wait until you feel calm to start. You start right inside the chaos, right there in the overthinking, in the restlessness, in the sleepless nights, because creativity doesn't always come with peace and stillness. Sometimes it arrives as a storm. Your job isn't to control it, it's to give it somewhere to go. That might mean writing, even if no one reads it, or drawing, even if it's messy, or speaking your truth out loud to an empty room. It might mean rearranging your furniture just to feel something shift, or walking a new path, just to remind yourself you can. Creativity doesn't have to look like art. It can look like problem solving, like asking better questions, like creating space in your life for what feels real. It's not about talent, it's about translation, turning the raw material inside you, the fear, the tension, the thoughts that won't sit still into something with shape. When you do that, the anxiety changes. It doesn't vanish, but it stops owning you. It becomes fuel. It becomes part of your voice. Not something to silence, but something to channel. And here's the real magic. The more you create, the more you trust yourself. You stop fearing the next anxious moment, because now you know what to do with it. You don't spiral. You express, you make, you move. This is the path out, not perfection, not performance, just presence. Let yourself be a vessel, not a storage unit. You're not meant to hold it all. You're meant to shape it. So the next time your thoughts race, ask yourself, what could I make out of this? not to impress, not to prove, just to release. The energy is going to be there either way. You might as well turn it into something beautiful, or strange, or silly, or raw, whatever it needs to be, because when you do, you stop being at war with your own mind, and you start collaborating with it. That's the moment things shift. Anxiety doesn't have to be your enemy. It can be your cue, your call to action, your creative ignition. You are not too much. You are a force waiting for form. And maybe the most healing thing you can do is not to calm down, but to finally let it out.